Hi, Daphne. Nice to meet you. My name is Caleb Toyo. I'm a senior here at Western Washington University. My pronouns are he, him, and his, and my major is Arts BA, which is Bachelor of Arts, Communication Studies, and my minor is ACI, which is Arts Enterprise and Cultural Innovation Program. Now, this past week, I did watch your affirmative video of if capital punishment should be abolished in the United States, which I do agree from your side. But since as devil's advocate, I do want to oppose that opposition to a certain extent, as you see. Because I will admit that there have been recent executions and controversies that are igniting the surrounding of death penalty here in America, which was often presented as a complex and really ethical queries in a world to America. It's not which we need to ask the question to ourselves. We need about the death penalty in America is not whether someone deserves to die for the crime, but more rather if we deserve to get killed. Now, from your two major claims, which was the racial biases, the wrongful convictions, and the legal presentence, I do agree with those. Those were like probably the top five or top three in your case, or one of these three major causes here in America that are causing the death penalty. And it becomes a more flawed and expensive policy and corrupts the entire integrity of the criminal justice system. Now, I believe that we need to keep capital punishment here in America and you know expand it towards internationally as well. Because in our current stage here in America, it's not the perfect system, but it is part of our constitutional, you know, to have people deserve the equal and justice for these deaths for the victims who are witnessing or not getting a fair trial for these situations. So, my position, there's two reasons. I have two reasons of what might cause this, which will keep the death penalty here in America. One is having public safety, that's for sure, and balancing the social welfare. So according to the Malcour Center for Applied Ethics in Santa Clara University by Claire Andre and Manuel Velasquez, they somewhat tell that if death penalty should be a duty or under the doomsday of the public, and so they say here that capital punishment is often defended on the grounds that society has a moral obligation to protect the safety and welfare of its citizens. These murders threaten the safety and welfare, only putting sentence to murders to death can society can ensure the convicted killers do not kill again. So how I would rephrase this is basically saying that those failing capital punishment can contend that society should be support those practices that would know to bring the greatest balance of both good and evil. Now, it's a common sense tells us that people know that they will die to perform a certain act that they will be unwilling to perform these acts down the road. So they'll be more reassured that they want to convict these crimes or felonies ever again. And now the way I would see it, that to keep death penalty alive and make sure it's more maintained, it's better for society to take a gamble that penalty that deters in order to protect the lives of innocent people than simply just taking the risk of gambling, of not deterring towards society, and towards the live murderers and what the more harmful risk um of the innocents being killed, which is basically just sacrificing lives of convicted murderers, which is not the case in general. Another one was the death penalty prevents future murder, as I said, which should apply to more fairly and intended, which there's a trial case in 1990 between the People versus Gonzalez, where a 4-year-old niece named Jenny Rojas was killed by being tortured and murdered by her own parents, named Veronica Gonzalez and the husband Ivan Gonzalez, where um, they was sentenced in 1998 in July, which it was accused as being the most worst trial case of child abuse in the San Diego County, and unfortunately, despite as I said, being the first married couple in California to ever convicted a killing of a child, um, one of the in the trial cases, Veronica's associate named Rebecca Wiseman wanted to reverse his case as a prosecution of misconduct, even though in the article of San Diego, they were saying that she was the most dominant spouse in the marriage, which was really influitive, and like it really caused a lot of conspiracy and showing like doing the drugs, rehab from the parents' side, the grandparents' side, this whole allegation and whatnot, and so it just proves to me that if murderers are sentenced to death and executed, that should how it be, because we would have thinking that potential murderers would think twice before killing for fear of losing their own life, which it just basically just it's like a double-edged sword. It just causes a lot of information of like why that happened, and so those parents, in my perspective, that Veronica and Ivan deserve to get killed because a 4-year-old who doesn't get a chance to survive and know they're unwilling deserves to be punished for this because a young child deserves education, benefits, and resources from all across the world and live prosperly alive. And so I know that many criminologists and analyze these murder rates day by day that they actually fluctuate with the likelihood of these insane cutthroats being executed, but of course, any result could be ambiguous at the end of the day. Now, I understand that there could be a few rebuttals, which, as you mentioned, Daphne, that they focus on the inhumaneness of continuing racial and economic biases. It happened during the 20th century when there was slavery, punishment of the black population culture, of being rebellions, they being allegedly be raped or murder attempt to these white women or girls. And as you said, 51% of the population is towards the Hispanic and any colored people being marginalized. And according to the death penalty information that you said in 1972, the United States of the Supreme Court overturned the death penalty and part of the danger of those subject to die, they disproportionately of the minority. So it does make sense with that part. Another one is the incompatible with humans and human dignity as another rebuttal of why I can see people not wanting to continue the death penalty here in America. Because I read an article from the Seattle Journal for Social Justice by Robert Johnson of the American University. He was addressing that individuals' distinctiveness understood through the unique human capacity of the well-being and mental health, which is the ultimate obligation that is the responsibility to continue moral enterprise where they should be aware of one's life and make sure that in a crime or choice or punishment that respects nobility in the criminal should be noted as justice because that criminal who did a felony, killed, or did any kind of witness or any kind of bad deal, they deserve to get punished as long as they were aware and understand what they will do for those consequences. It's that saying of saying, innocent until proven guilty, but in reality, the bear is not out there. And, breaching the personal rights of their life and equality is still under the international law and should be considered as a fundamental process here in America should be more, not overlooked, but, realize the consequences and life lesson learned. So in conclusion, there are ways that I understand that, people don't want the death penalty to be um, moving forward or continuing on here in America. But at the end of the day, it does bring an upholding justice of suppression, and we need to address the flaw without repelling. Because at the end of the day, race is continuing like a plague in the application of the death penalty. Because the federal government will long assume the role of protecting against racially biased application of this law. But in my belief, proportionality in sentencing align the punishment brings more moral balance. Because death penalty is a retribution of capital offenses, and it does bring up a principle of only depending on the severity of the crimes deserve to get punished. And that's why we do need to bring justice. Thank you so much.